That means you're extraordinary.
So what up, guys? Today I'm out on the lake again, and before I start my lake session today, I just wanted to show you guys some of the lines that I bring out to the lake. Personally, I feel that lake lines is the most important part of lake fly fishing. It can be even more important than the actual fly pattern that you're using. And honestly, at times I feel like having the correct fly line on will actually outfish having the correct fly pattern on. So I'm going to start with the slower sinking lines that I have and go all the way down to the faster sinking lines I have. And then quickly, just before I start, I just want to say that if you're new to fly fishing or you're new to lake fishing, you don't really need all these lines to be successful on the lake. You really only need like 2 lines, and obviously a floating line, something that we all should already have. And then also what you need is some type of sinking line, like an intermediate, preferably. If you're new to fly fishing, just get those 2 lines, a floating line and a fast glass or an intermediate line, and you'll be successful. So first off, the first line that I'm going to show you is just that I always take out to the lakes is my floating line, something we all have. This is the number 7 Rio Grande. And then next is my fast glass line. So when it comes to intermediate lines, I have 2 different intermediate lines. I have the fast glass, which is actually a line that I use like 80% of the time. Probably my most used line is the fast glass and the medium glass. The medium glass, the difference is one sinks at 1 inch per second, and then another one sinks at 1.5 inches per second. And like I said, this is just my most used line. And the reason, one thing to keep in mind about using lake lines is that trout tend to look up to eat. So it's better to start higher in the water column and then work your way down. That's why I say that you don't really need all these lines, because if you really had time to wait, you can get away with catching fish. So the goal really with all these lines is to get your fly down to the depth that they're eating and then keep it there as long as possible. So the longer you can get your fly to the correct depth and the longer you can keep it there will usually mean more fish. So this is the medium glass that I'm going to start with today actually in my lake session, and then this is the fast glass. So next, this is a type 3 line that I use, and also along with the type 3 I have the 3 sweep. So if fish ain't biting on a fast glass, I'll drop down to a 3 or a 3 sweep. The sweep line, it'll go through the water column like a U shape. So the front portion of the line sinks at 1.5 inches per second, and then the belly of it sinks at 3, and then back towards you it'll sink at 1.5 inches per second. It's also cool to use. It'll just give you a different look to your flies. So even if you know the fish are at a 3 or at 1.5 inches, you can switch to 3 and just give your flies a different look with that U-shaped pattern. I have the type 5. I have 2 different type 5s. It's just your normal 5. And quickly, what I mean by 5 and what a 3 is that a 5 will sink at 5 inches per second, and then a 3 will sink at 3 inches per second. So this is a type 5 full sink. This is just a real line. And then this one is my 5 sweep. And the 5 sweep is 3 at the front, 5 at the belly, and then 3 back at you. It'll pull through the same U-shaped pattern, just further down and get a little deeper. Oh, and then lastly, the last 2 single lines that I have are my type 7. So this is the 7 full sink. This is, I think it's a real line too. So it sinks at 7 inches per second. And this is my 7 sweep. So it'll have 5, 7 in the belly, and then 5 back out. So the sweep lines are technically searching lines. What you're doing is you're going through different water columns on each cast, and you're trying to figure out what depth the fish are feeding at. And then once you find it, you switch to your normal line. Something you can do with them, or you can just use them to give your flies a different look. So that's what I use with the 5. And one thing to mention when I'm using these 2 7s is that with the 7, I like to shorten my leader. Use a real short leader because your 7 will actually sink faster than your flies are sinking at. So your flies will still be higher up in the water column. Your 7 will be down here, so you're not getting all the way down. But if you shorten your leader, your flies will get down pretty close to the depth that your 7 is. And actually last year I won a lake session on Lake Placid with a type 7, and I kind of think that the only difference one of the only differences between me and my boat angler was that I had a real short leader, like like literally like a foot leader, and that's what helped me get the win on lake sessions. And like I mentioned before, you don't need all these lines to be successful, and compared to a lot of anglers that I know, I actually don't have very many lines. Most anglers have probably double or even triple the amount of fly lines that I take out to the lakes. But this is just kind of a guide to give you guys, to kind of give you an idea of what I'm using when I'm out on lakes. Majority of the time if I'm on the banks, I'm only using my medium glass, my fast glass, and then my floating line. If I'm bank fishing, those are usually all the lines I'll need if I'm bank fishing. Lake fishing is a lot different because I'm usually in a boat and fishing deeper water, so I need the other types of sinking lines. So that's it, just giving you guys an idea of the sinking lines that I bring out to the lake. I'm gonna get my lake session started, and like I said earlier, I'm starting out with medium glass line and just 2 olive buggers.